Someone recently lost their child, their young child, through suicide. And the question they have asked is, what was the karma of this child that she had to die in this way? So the first response is that it's more important to understand that the karmic redemption here relates to that of the parent, not the child. Because it is the parent who is suffering this terrible pain and loss. And therefore, the next obvious question is, what was wrong with the karma that I have done? And my answer to this is that imagine diverse scenarios where the soul may have chosen such a difficult life lesson. The first could be that the soul carries the imprint of not being sympathetic or kind to someone who had lost a child in another lifetime. So let's examine a situation where you are a well-to-do rich landlord. There is a servant who loses a child, and you are not particularly kind or empathetic to that loss, and you treat that servant with disregard, discounting the loss that he has undergone. It is possible that when your soul is reviewing its lessons for this forthcoming lifetime, in between lives, when it is deciding its soul's syllabus for this lifetime, it may choose that it will incur a similar kind of loss so that the soul can erase the seeds of being unsympathetic and develop empathy in this lifetime. There could be another scenario where you may have been responsible for the death of someone else's child. For example, if you were a king in a particular lifetime who had great ambitions to expand his kingdom and to be able to conquer more lands, and to do that, of course, you had your armies, and young men and boys had to fight on your behalf to fulfill your ambitions, and therefore their parents became childless because of the loss of soldiers and all the unnecessary bloodshed. In that case, you may choose in this lifetime to redeem the karma of that lifetime as a king, to complete the karmic redemption, and to understand just how painful it is for parents to lose their young children. There could be a third scenario where the soul imprint is one of escape. So let's assume that in another lifetime, you had a child that you lost, maybe during childbirth or through other natural or unnatural causes, and you were so grieved with that loss that you just couldn't go on living, and you decided to end your life. Now here we see that the soul has not had the capacity to go through that experience of loss and to process it, and chose to escape that suffering by ending their own life. Here the soul may then decide that I will create a similar scenario, perhaps an even more complex one or a difficult one, so that I do not once again escape it, and that my soul's calling is brought to attention to rise to the challenge and to be able to hold on and process the grief and expand myself through that. So here we are looking at undoing an old habit of escape and perhaps developing fortitude and the courage to go through such difficult experiences. There could also be a fourth scenario where the imprint carried in the soul is a seed of revenge, where someone caused harm to your family, to your loved one, or to your child, and you were so angry about that situation that you decided that you were going to go and steal from them or take away from them their child so that they could feel your pain, and that you chose to give in to your vengeful desires and maybe killed their loved one too. We know that in the past, history has seen many cases where such battles were fought over land, over property, where castes and creeds had these kind of conflicts between them. And maybe your soul has chosen to be able to heal that vengeful tendency in this lifetime by going through a similar suffering and then having to let go it, because you can't really fight with destiny or the experience of what you've gone through. If the child has committed suicide, there is no enemy that you can go back to and make do or do tit for tat. Now, as far as the child is concerned, of course, the karma of someone who has committed suicide is similar to scenario 3, where you have actually escaped the suffering of that difficult life. That soul will then need to come back and to be able to develop this capacity for forbearance. I'm also asked the question, therefore, will the soul of my child suffer? Because there are certain stories or explanations that say souls that commit suicide are then put through the hells or through torture. And that is not true. Because even if you, in the afterlife, have to go through the hells of overcoming whatever it is that you couldn't deal with in your physical human existence, in your embodied existence, in the afterlife, you're given the opportunity to undergo training, counseling, guidance, so that you can actually expand and develop the capacity at a soul level to come back and endure that experience in a future lifetime. What you can do if you've suffered such a loss is actually to pray for the dear departed soul and hope that that prayer will be answered, where a soul from a higher realm experience can actually come to the rescue of this departed soul and guide them towards the light. You can also pray for them to actually expand the capacity in the soul to be able to overcome such experiences with greater ease in future lifetimes. I hope this answers the question of having lost a young child and the karmic patterns underlying that. If you have any further questions, please feel free to comment or write into me. You can reach me at susiehealsme@gmail.com, and I'd be glad to answer your questions.